Gustavo told you about the Secretary Marco Rubio, right? That he was saying that he was interested in Gustavo. Trump also gave everyone a head up. It seems to me that the Secretary of State Marco Rubio works for Gustavo. He is Gustavo's co-manager in Washington and Trump is Gustavo's co-manager in CTD in Washington. Well, actually, to be exact, the article said that it was a conjecture, that Trump wanted to leave Crimea to the Russian. What Donald Trump is doing is acknowledging Putin's work, and it's not a joke. President Donald Trump is recognizing Putin's work since 2014. As Gustavo says, the war, the Russian invasion of Crimea, is in line with the letter document that Gustavo Galarza sent to Cristina Kirchner on July 10, 2014. I mean, what better? The Americans abuse their propaganda. What better? When the Diplomat series came out on Netflix, Gustavo Galarza said, that series is so that Americans can distance themselves from their association with the Russians to the entire world. What better way to do it than to use Netflix's propaganda? Well, and having said that, Trump, Vance and Rubio is recognizing that they are paying Putin for favors. It's not a joke. Gustavo, I anticipate you Marco Rubio is stepping down because he's not interested in Ukraine, it's Gustavo's interest. So the United States government here with Gustavo every days, its satellite has set out to bother Gustavo with these two articles from DW. The act of listening to the article bothering me is always here. So Estella, Alcides and the satellite, of course, to leave your comment. They boast of a property. They boast a property. What property is the objective of the United States government? With the target phrase Meta introduces about Gustavo Galarza. Besides being a lie, as Gustavo says, Gustavo is an empty container. Everything the United States government does here is property and is responsibility of the United States government. The comment that Estella makes there could be a person or a device, it is a computer. It could be a device there and satellite has the note programmant. He programs the article and when the computer gets there, boom. Your problem, it's not my problem. That's what they do. Your problem is that with that communication you want to beat Gustavo Galarza. That's why they've been using it for 15 years, because those methods don't work. That's why they've been here for 15 years. Now, Donald Trump, Joe Vance and Marco Rubio, you had to wage war from 2014 to 2025. That's 11 years of war, a lot of deaths, a lot of arsenal, a lot of money. And Gustavo is still here. Who's the smart one? Gustavo or all of you? Already know the answer. Don't you know the answer? Well, that's the proof Gustavo have. They lie and on top of that US not admit it's true. The United States and Argentina want to steal everything using force. They use the article the part where Vance speaks. Of course, Vice President Vance says that if the United States withdraws of Ukraine, they use Vice President Vance. Why do they use Vance? Because he's the bearded one. Yesterday I was telling Vance, shave, so I know where you have your nose and teeth. Vice President Vance said in the article that for the United States, he says that things should stay as they are, every ground game. So I say, of course, you maintain the debt of Gustavo Galarza and the debt of all your companies and friends, both Argentines and international, and Gustavo Galarza maintains the property that Gustavo Galarza has. Which one do Gustavo Galarza have? Gustavo Galarza and Comodoro PY Court. Now, did you get the message? Did you get the message? It is so and it is so and it is so. I went the Comodoro PY Court I alone and of course and with the pen as I anticipated to what is the name of the mobster Santiago Caputo in his shooting practice I went with the pen, the pencil and the little sheets and I killed them all. So what the United States is doing here with me on the satellite is not incollectible to the United States. So immediately the audio is heard, the article follows and they put on the Buenos Aires police PBA siren. I mean, they always want to collect properties that they invent for this purpose, and on top of that, they threaten with the police. Two inappropriate things, so inappropriate. So come on, the only smart thing Vice President said is that everyone keeps their properties. Now, the problem your government has is that it will continue to torture and harass Gustavo Galarza. That's the problem your government has. You're going to keep bothering and torturing Gustavo Galarza. So the only option your government has is to drive me crazy. So now, as I tell everyone, if the United States government always wants to sow despair, then it resorted to the article. EU Commission finds Apple, Meta over digital law breaches. Another article. Ukraine updates. Envoys meet London after Rubio pulls out. You see, what we see in the world, the current news, is like there's the United States government looking to steal everywhere and establish. The good thing about Vance, you think you're a lawyer, is that you establish properties, you understand. Vice President Vance established properties. Vance established that the properties stolen by Russia, through an invasion will be maintained and the properties that Ukraine retains will be maintained. Now, in my case it's exactly the same. Gustavo beat you Comodoro PY Court like that. That is insuperable and unbeatable. And you're going to keep Gustavo's debt, but we're going to give you 5 business days to withdraw. Well, let's see if the US satellite with DTAW 5 business days. I already know the answer. Laughable. Whoa. They're not going to retire, but they're going to continue doing it, generating crime charges. against themselves and fines and legal, moral, psychological and all kinds of consequences and all kinds of debt for wanting to get torture Gustavo Galarza and trying to drive Gustavo crazy. So Vance were somewhat coherent, come on. Hey, you said things stay that way. Well, they're going to stay like this, but you're going to continue. I mean, attacking your terrorist state, and the Argentine terrorist state is going to continue attacking the life of Gustavo Galarza, so things stay like this, so everything is Gustavo's property. Already very clear. The problem that you and the Argentines have is lying. Things are simple, they stay that way. Gustavo stays with Comodoro PY Court and you will stay with the Gustavo's debt. The joke's over, you're not going to get any further from here. So no matter how many planes, helicopters, or whatever fly by, they're not going to get any further from here. So, and since Gustavo tells him everything, of the US's government would have power over Gustavo, he'll kill Gustavo in a second. Gustavo doesn't even notice, right? So the joke is over. Hit the plate. Joke's over. You're not going to be able to advance, especially. As you see in the world, the United States plays its race. It seeks to stay with properties, of them staying with properties of other owners. And in Argentina it's exactly the same. President Javier Milei, the US representative, has the same intentions, to keep properties. Do you remember, Cristina Kirchner? Cristina said, I'm going to keep everything. Milei, seriously, wants to keep it all. This one, go. There it is, right there. This thief wants to keep everything. This thief wants to keep everything. This thief has the support of US, he wants to keep everything. But if Gustavo continues, he already told you 2025, he told you, nothing is done. Vice President Vance, he wanted to take a picture with the Pope and the Pope left him paying, and then the news says that Vance saw the Pope in a private meeting. Well, Annabella means 21st, the Pope passed away on Monday the 21st. Well, the gentlemen, they have everything scheduled. The US have the entire calendar very detailed that they are going to make. The Americans have the entire calendar very detailed. So now they are going to make the plank for the conclave. Properties are going to be like Gustavo told when is a hypothesis when they chose Pope Francis. Of course, and I didn't know his name was Jorge Mario. Now we know Jorge Mario as we call yesterday. Jorge my dad, Jorge Assis. Oh, and it was Francisco for Francisco de Assis. The writer Jorge Assis, Jorge, the criminals here. Jorge, my dad, Jorge Galan. Well, Mario, my brother Mario Bello's friend, and Mario Pergolini. The Americans are fighting over the world's properties. They want to steal all the properties. Well, they're disputing all the properties and one property next door. Which one is it? The Pope's throne. Go on, in your mentality, that property. So President Trump stopped the ball for the conclave and the next Pope. Did you understand? The US's government stopped the ball because that properties are interested in properties and properties in the media. Well, properties, you understand. Okay, so those are the disputes for staying for the properties, for other people's properties. Gustavo is owned by Gustavo. Satellite is owned by Gustavo Galarza. That's why there's a property dispute here. Of properties, the satellite lies to you all the time, so it can never be certified as real. Never. So I sense this is a break from the United States for the next property dispute. Which is it? The Popes. Then they're going to go back there. Ukraine, because they can't let them loose there, right? They can't let Russia stay on property, you understand. You can't leave her loose because the Chinese are also there, so understand all that is to be resolved. Gustavo Galarza, don't be scared of anything here, of anything, because receive information directly from satellite all the time. The hacker got it, before I even saw DW, and this new from EU Commission finds Apple, Meta over digital law breaches. Before I saw it, the hacker already anticipating what was going to come out in the newspapers. What did he put on me? Hacker put on phone, Facebook, Apple, Meta, all her nonsense. He also uses Facebook. Gustavo Galarza doesn't have any Facebook history, so Meta has a small Facebook history from 2010 when I was in this house and I opened Facebook and it looked like Facebook itself erased my password so I couldn't log in again, so Gustavo doesn't have Facebook. You see that we say it's the Easter plan. Well, you see that Celeste Sid appeared. This one is clear, Celeste Sid appeared. Why does Celeste Sid appear? I'm not interested in Celeste Sid if it's a Celeste Sid giant or Stallone. Because always appealing that Gustavo is a good guy, always the same thing has opted Washington. Yes, I am a good guy but I'm not stupid. Now, why does Celeste Sid appear this time? They need to save everyone. They put Celeste Sid because they need to save Chiquitita Little Girl, Channel 11 when it had Telefónica de España, Viacom because they put Ariel Rodriguez the cook in Comodoro PY, Susana Jimenez because they brought the magazine Susana Jimenez, La Nación because here they brought the magazine of La Nación where was Celeste Sid and other Argentine actresses are. Capricorn Celeste Sid had a son with Emmanuel Horbeler when at the time that they still know, they follow the pattern of Capricorn Lorena, Poca, Clarín and Disney. And obviously to Cristina Kirchner and Macri as Gustavo tells in the elimination plan of 2005. It is clear and forceful. The CIA is hot because I screwed Mario Pergolini. Mario Pergolini is multiple fraud. See, Mario Pergolini, I am the witness that the advertising teacher said CQC Pergolini's show. Well, I'm the witness. The advertising teacher said CQC. Surely the teacher has a camera and a microphone over there. Surely. Well, she must have a camera and a microphone. It's very likely that the one who put the microphone on Melody was Mario Pergolini. Very likely. Because I reiterate, Mario Pergolini is not journalist and his CQC is not journalism, but then he has punto doc point doc, so they always enter from one side and then search the sky. They used CQC as a Trojan horse to say that's stupid, and then they wanted to charge me with your multiple fraud. Of course, because a 25-year-old adult woman is not a minor. Well, you're multiple fraud. This own goal is definitive because it is definitive. Why is it definitive? Because Mario Pergolini is Clarence O and Pergolini is the CIA, and Pergolini is the first instance judges, the side state intelligence service, the CIA, the first judges and prosecutors, Stornelli in the province of Buenos Aires, of license as federal prosecutor, and as the federal government and are the media. Pergolini explained perfect plan that Gustavo has been telling him about the priest's plan. Well, not doubt, but all from Gustavo. Gustavo explains the criminal procedure code well. The laws did not make Gustavo, but they have a legal rationality, a rationality of justice and a rationality of administration of justice. What does the Argentine criminal procedure code say? He says that preliminary are resolved first and that, fine, correct. Why correct? Because the cases of Lorena, Annabella, Agustin Torres, Ariel Torres and his children, Fernando Gonzalez and his children, with Ariel Torres are all notified because they are all notified, because I went to both houses, so they are all notified. And also the state. Since the state is on everything and the media is on everything, they are all notified. That is, in practice they are all notified because the state is there and the media are there. They were all notified, so they didn't file any charges against Gustavo Galarza, and we reiterated, that is, the preliminary proceeding come first. Because they come back with their nonsense that nobody is interested in and that are not procedural, so in no way and that nobody is going to enable all their fantasies to be true. We are not interested, they did not make any presentation. Now from 2010 to 2025 to the present, Gustavo Galarza's life. So the intimacy of people is not judged, and since these 15 years are not going to be judged, I mean, you presented something in the 15 years since Gustavo Galarza. All of you, the Argentine state, the United States, the media presented something of Gustavo Galarza. Did the private sector present something from Gustavo Galarza? No. Gustavo's intimacy is protected by law, and it's clear that you manipulate all of Gustavo's possibilities here in his private life. With the media, you manipulate everything at your discretion and then establish comments at your discretion. Blah, right. Procedurally, you, first are the real minors and then you will see this house procedurally. The judges are going to dictate that it's not in the interest of any state. The Argentine government doesn't matter. Gustavo Galarza's interest matters, right? Because I am a human being and they are committing state crimes and crimes against Gustavo Galarza's humanity. So first is Gustavo Galarza's interest. It is also clear that they persecute existing cases. President Javier Milei with the Granadero Lorencito, as explained by the Provincial Court of San Martin, for the idea of judging the pedophilia. Lorenzo Torres is the grandfather of Agustin 25 years old and Tomas Torres, 29 years old. Then this Agustin Laje. It is clear what Agustin Laje put him Milei because he is from San Miguel and because he speaks of pedophilia. It is clear that the same themes persecute, as they invented. It is clear, what chases Gustavo Galarza for the same issues as the US and Argentina invented, and what should have resolved, that clear. First, preliminary and related allegations are resolved, because you are extorting it, and because they endanger all the truth and justice, so they continue to extort it. Because the state and the media have the monopoly of private lawyers and federal judges and prosecutors with their denial of justice. The truth and justice that Gustavo Galarza asks. This very clear that putting minors in a medium like The Guardian, Gustavo is not going to look for minors to international news websites. That the satellite and the site extort it. Both governments continue to extort the false pedophilia, covering up all cases already resolved with minors. The extortion with minors made by the federal and provincial state and the media from 2010 to the present do not have procedural validity against GDG for the cases presented in the federal justice, because they have the obligation to investigate and denounce, and not they did since 2013. It is very clear that Gustavo does not seek minors in The Guardian, nor in DW, nor in Infobae, nor in Profile. It is very clear that the Argentine celebrities with minors, it is to disturb and harass the witness. This very clear, that they do it to keep their cases invented. President Milei with the Granadero Lorencito, and Agustin Laje. It is clear what they seek to make fraud. Now, this Pergolini is very clear in the media again, because your producer put the microphone to the advertising teacher and they put the microphone to Melody what I was wearing in my car. Pergolini together with Security Minister Carlos Stornelli told Lorena and his family, of the case of false pedophilia, Annabella Pergolini is Clarín, you lost CIA, US kept practicing goals against you.